The plan was that she was going to step away from work for just a few minutes to buy food for her crew, but she would never make it back. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Sue Taraskiewicz. Viewer discretion is advised. Real quick before we get started, hello, I'm Mike. If you're new to the channel, I tell 3 true crime stories every single week here, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So please subscribe, give this video a like, and all that jazz so it gets pushed out to more people. I also tell short form true crime stories over on TikTok, where I have around 3 million or so followers. I tell at least one story there every single day. The link is in the link tree in the description of this video below. You'll also see at the very beginning of this video up here and towards the end. So please follow. And I also sell merch. We ship all over the world. That's also linked in the link tree below. I have a Discord server. Please feel free to join it. Be over the age of 18 or you're going to get kicked out of there. And then lastly, if there's a case you want me to cover, please just email me, makingatruecrimerertwo.com. Don't worry, that's listed in the description below. Just email me the name of the case, like the person, where it happened, when it happened. I'll add it to my list. It may be a long time before I get to cover it because I pick my cases at random. The dog does not like that, obviously, but I will get to that case eventually. Anyway, into today's case. I'm doing this for a reason. Susan Taraskiewicz, who would go by Sue, and they spelled it S-U, she was born on February 13th, 1965, and that was in Massachusetts. From what I understand, she lived pretty much most of her life in Massachusetts, or all of it. Many years later, Sue would get a job working at Logan International Airport, and she kind of started there at the bottom. She would like clean, the interiors of jets. She did baggage handling. She was the only at the time, and this was back in 1989 when she first kind of got that work. She was only the second female ever to do this work at Northwest Airlines at Boston Logan International Airport. And then in 1992, she became the very first female to ever get promoted to basically the ramp supervisor position. And, this is a job I know her mom, I think, would say at one point she wished she never did. At the same time, she knows that Sue really loved doing this. This was like something she just had a great time doing. And she had all of the skills necessary to thrive in this position as a supervisor. Her mom said that, Sue would always joke about how she was kind of like one of the guys. She would always come home and say, I moved about 1 million bags today, and every single bag weighed like 200 pounds. She always joked about it. Even though she loved this work, this was not her ultimate dream. Apparently she wanted to become like a firefighter, and she also had aspirations to be a cartoonist. Like she had all these like hopes and dreams. And unfortunately, none of that would ever come true. It was 7:30 a.m. on September 14th, 1992. A blue Toyota Tercel was found seemingly abandoned in the parking lot in an auto place called Bravo Tire and Auto, I think. The name has since changed. The image I'm showing is the exact location where the car was found. They have just since changed names. This was located in Revere, Massachusetts, which I guess really wasn't that far away from the airport. But one of the mechanics, when they got to work that morning, they noticed the car there and they saw kind of like a big stain underneath the trunk. And this being a mechanic who knew what oil looked like, knew that this was not oil. This was something different. It looked like blood. So he called police. When police arrive, they pop open the trunk and inside is a body. This body was the body of a younger female. She had been bludgeoned and she was stabbed many times. And then obviously she was then thrown into the trunk of her own vehicle, because this would be later found out to be her car, and then driven to this location where the car was just abandoned. They would identify the body as that of 27-year-old Susan Taraskiewicz. The coroner determined that she was not sexually assaulted in any way, shape, or form. She was fully clothed when she was found, but the family and really police believe that this was still a very targeted attack. This was meant for Sue. Someone wanted to do this to her. Police needed to retrace her steps, and they discovered that, of course, she worked at the airport, and they found out the last time Sue was ever seen at work was actually on September 12th, 1992. She had been scheduled to work the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. She was doing the overnight shift as supervisor. And that night, her coworker said that she was really encouraging them, that she, because, you know, she is the boss, that she was really happy with how productive they were being. And so she said, you know what? I'm going to go step away from work. I'm going to go to the local sandwich place. I'm buying everyone sandwiches because I guess the sandwich place was open in the middle of the night. She left work around 1 a.m. This was confirmed by her coworkers and also by her time card because she punched out right around 1 a.m. She was seen getting into her car and then driving away, and then never seen again. What's kind of unbelievable, and this really kind of irritated her family, understandably, and it really confused the police. She was last seen on September 12th, but she wasn't found until September 14th, which means she was missing for a day and a half. It was odd to everyone because why did no one report that she didn't come back to work after she said she was going to get sandwiches and coming back? Her family was like, you know, they asked work, like, has Sue ever done that? Has she ever left work and just never come back before? And they're like, no, it's never happened before. That was the first time. Then why didn't you say anything? And nobody has that answer. Nobody has answered why nobody reported her to anyone about her not coming back to work or being missing. Very odd. Giant red flag. What they discovered, they don't know who, they still don't know who, somebody punched her time card back in to give her the hours. So in a way, it looks like someone was trying to create a window of time where it appeared Sue was at work, but really wasn't. And, you know, initially police questioned all of her coworkers, they questioned people in her life, family, friends, that kind of thing. They tried to look for any kind of, you know, ex-lovers or current lovers, and they struck out. They didn't find anything in any of those interviews that would suggest who may have done this or who may have wanted to do this. So the case goes cold pretty quickly. And a year goes by. It's now 1993. Sue's mom, for the first time in a year, decides to go into Sue's bedroom. And by the way, yes, Sue did live with her parents at the time, and I believe they did report her missing, but it was like the night before she was found or the morning, because, she was 27 years old. You know, she didn't come home for a day and a half. It's not like totally unusual. She could have just gone out and hung out with someone or slept over at someone's house, you know. But at any rate, a year or so later, Sue's mom goes into Sue's bedroom for the first time. And she goes into the closet, she notices like the suitcase, she opens it up and she finds what appears to be just like a notebook with a whole bunch of writing in it. And it looks like this is something that Sue was using kind of just to jot down as like a diary or a journal. Sue's mom reads all of this and discovers something very concerning and very shocking. Sue was dealing with a massive amount of harassment at work, namely from the male employees. It kind of started off that Sue would notice really gross graffiti in like the bathrooms that are directed at Sue. There was like someone wrote, Sue was a slut on like one of the bathroom stalls or in the bathroom. There was gratuitous graffiti with regards to Sue, like in the cargo holds. Her car had been vandalized. Her car had been keyed by someone. And she also wrote down in this journal that she had been receiving threatening phone calls from men. She couldn't say exactly who the phone calls came from, but probably someone from work. Now, Sue was dating someone at the time, and he also worked at the airport. In this journal, Sue mentioned a time when one of her coworkers, I believe this man's name was Robert Brooks, Sue had gotten a radio from her mom an old school radio. She had it in the break room at work, and Robert Brooks comes in, takes the radio, and just throws it on the ground. It doesn't break, and she's obviously pissed off. Her boyfriend sees it. He's pissed off. He's like, what did you do that for? And then, Sue picks it up, and it's still working, so she puts it back on the table. Several minutes later, this Robert Brooks guy comes back into the break room, takes the radio, and chucks it at a wall, and it breaks, shatters it. And Sue, and this was, she detailed that this was before she became a supervisor. So she was just like on the same level as everyone else. And so, Sue told Robert, hey, you're going to have to, because Sue wasn't someone to fuck around. Like she would come at you. She would be very directed. This is Boston, they have a different way, different attitude. And so she was not afraid to kind of fight back and said, listen, you're paying for a new radio. And Robert Brooks is like, no, I'm not. And so Sue's boyfriend then confronts Brooks and says, you're paying for her radio, you piece of shit. Later, she would write down in this journal that Robert Brooks confronted her after she once again said, you're paying for my radio. And he said to her, no, I'm not going to pay you for the radio, not fixing it. And then what are you going to do? Send your little boyfriend after me again? If you send him after me again, I'll kill him. Police found out that at one point, allegedly, Sue and Robert Brooks had dated very, very briefly. This may be a reason why he was so, angry towards her. Who knows? After she got promoted, the harassment got kind of worse, not just from him, but from another man named Joseph Nuzzo, N-U-Z-Z-O. Well, there would be like a time where someone urinated in her locker, and they were writing like sexual gratuitous shit on her locker. And then once again in the bathroom, there was these floating rumors like, we're not taking orders from a woman. Like, no. There were many male employees there who completely respected her, did everything she asked them to do, and were totally cool with her being the boss, right? But there were some men who were like, nope, not taking orders from a woman. There was a time where Sue noticed that Joseph Nuzzo, however you say it, got into a fight, like an actual altercation at work with another male coworker. Sue got in the middle of them and said, break it the fuck up, like get away from each other. And Joseph didn't like that. He didn't like that a woman got in between these two men to stop a fight because his fragile little feelings got hurt. And so he got really pissed at her and called her, sorry for my language here, I'm going to say what he said, but he called her a fucking cunt. So he was immediately suspended, and he wasn't getting paid for it. And initially, it looked like he had gotten fired, but he actually came back 6 months later. They believe he was the one probably calling her house and threatening her. They think he was the one to key her car, and allegedly, no one can corroborate this, but allegedly, he said to people that he would get revenge. Then police found out about a credit card scheme that was going on at the airport. Now, I need to note that Sue was not involved in any way, shape, or form in this credit card scheme. 37 employees of Northwest Airlines there at Logan International Airport in Boston, 10 of them being actual bag handlers, they took part in this credit card scheme that would eventually lead to collectively $7 million worth of stuff that they were able to purchase with these stolen credit cards, that they sold these credit cards to people, and those credit cards were used. They would essentially steal these like new credit cards from the credit card companies that were being, shipped and were on the plane. And these employees would just take them. They would activate them, and there were instances where they tracked it to where they bought jewelry. A lot of these guys used it at casinos. Now, when did this scam start and who started it? Well, coincidentally, it started after Joseph Nuzzo got back to work after his suspension. He was the one to initiate it. He started it. He came up with the idea. Turns out that Robert Brooks, the other guy who had been harassing Sue, the previous, temporary lover of Sue, he was not an active member of like initiating the scheme and like being like a ringleader, but he did participate in it. He did take some of the credit cards and he did use some of them. This happened only a few short months before Sue was murdered. It became more clear to Sue's mom that Robert and Joseph may have been involved in Sue's murder. The reason why is because both of those men were not only named eventually in the credit card scheme once this all blew over and everyone got in trouble and got caught for it. Both of those men came up in that investigation, and both of those men came up in Sue's journal with regards to the harassment. There are people at the airport when police were investigating the murder at this point. There were people who believe that Sue may have been the one to tip off the authorities with regards to this credit card fraud scheme thing. Later down the road, the FBI would confirm to everyone, including Sue's family, that Sue was not involved in any of the credit card scheme, nor was she the one to tip off the authorities. They got that information from somebody completely different, had no involvement with Sue at all. Did Sue know about the scheme? I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone really knows that or not. So because these two men were like the ones that came up both in the credit card thing and also in Sue's journal, police would talk to both of them. A month before Sue's murder, they found out that Joseph Nuzzo was permanently fired this time. And at that same time, Robert had requested a transfer to another airport, specifically the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, International Airport. And so that request was given to him and was allowed. And he, along with his family, because he had a wife, they moved to the Minneapolis area just a few weeks before Sue's murder. So Robert was not working at the airport. As a matter of fact, he was in a different state. And then Joseph Nuzzo was fired a month before the murder. Both men completely denied having any involvement in Sue's killing. Robert would tell police that on the night of Sue's murder, he was working at his new airport. He also said that he had not spoken to Joseph within the time frame of the murder, like before, the day of, the week after. He hadn't spoken to him at all. I guess they were friends. Police realized, they found out that the alibi was false. He was not at work that night in Minneapolis. And they also found out through phone records that he and Joseph had communicated by phone many times since Sue had been killed. Now, Joseph Nuzzo had another job at this point. He says he was at work that night as well. It was an overnight shift, also proven to be a lie. They found out he left work the night of Sue's murder at 11 p.m. Sue wasn't dead yet. Sue was still working because she didn't leave until 1 a.m. That being said, there has been no physical evidence to ever connect Robert Brooks or Joseph Nuzzo to the murder of Sue Taraskiewicz. Not one trace of physical evidence at all. Both men did lie. They did perjure themselves during the course of an investigation, so they were both charged accordingly with perjury. Robert Brooks ended up getting sentenced to 18 months in prison. Joseph Nuzzo got 3 years in prison. The only suspects police have are the people she worked with. They've cleared everyone in her personal life, like previous lovers. They've cleared any family members. Her current boyfriend was clearly on her side, was very defensive when people attacked her, because they would just continue to do shit to her at the airport before her death. Like one point they drew a coffin. Someone drew a coffin on her locker door with her name on the coffin. And her boyfriend's like, we've got to do something about this. And Sue's like, I've talked to everyone, because she did. She actually went to HR. She went to all the appropriate people with regards to all of this harassment. And what did Northwest Airlines do? Nothing. They did nothing for her. She told them that she was being harassed, physically harassed, sexually harassed. She was being targeted. She was getting phone calls. Her car was being keyed. Clearly, her coworkers were very angry that a woman was leading them. And not all of them, but some of them. But they still did nothing. They're just like, just deal with it, I guess. Police discovered that the sandwich place that Sue was going to go to that night, she never made it. They went to that sandwich location. They questioned the individual. The person who worked there knew Sue very, very well because she came there all the time. And he's like, she never got here. They also confirmed, I believe, through alibis that individual, like no one at the sandwich place could have been involved in the murder. They do have records that Sue took a phone call like within 10 minutes or so before she left work to go get food. Someone had called her. She spoke to them for a short, brief period of time, and that's when she said, I'm going to go leave to get food. Who was that person? Well, police don't know. They do believe, or at least her family believes, that that phone call may be the key. That whoever called her may have deliberately lured her, maybe to the sandwich place, maybe, or maybe somewhere else. Don't really know. They may have lured her out of work to get her alone. She would not have done that for Robert or for Joseph. There's no way she would have left work alone at 1 o'clock in the morning to go meet one of these two men or both of them. Two men she had big issues with, who were harassing her, who were violent, who threatened her. There's no way she would have met them, right? You would think. Can't say that for sure. Her family thinks it's someone she had to have trusted. Wasn't her boyfriend. They checked him out. Couldn't have been him. To this day, they have absolutely no idea who killed Sue Taraskiewicz. She left for work at 1 o'clock in the morning, and a day and a half later, she's found beaten and stabbed, bloodied, and thrown into the trunk of her own vehicle. There were, to my knowledge, no fingerprints found. There was no, to my knowledge, additional DNA found. Other than her own. No physical evidence that they've ever been able to, or if they do have it, they haven't connected it to anyone. If they do have evidence, I'm not sure if they've collected DNA samples from the two men in question. I don't know. Afterwards, Sue's family would actually sue Northwest Airlines for the sexual harassment that Sue put up with. And they actually won that lawsuit. They actually were awarded $75,000 for it, which again is kind of more proof that something was going on there to indicate that somebody at work likely did this. Somebody Sue worked with. Maybe it wasn't Robert, maybe it wasn't Joseph, maybe it was one of the other men who didn't like the fact that a woman was their boss. Have they questioned all of them? I don't know. Have they alibied all of them? I don't know. The airline at the time offered $250,000 reward for any information that would lead to the arrest of Sue's killer. I don't know if that reward is still out there because Northwest is no longer Northwest, it's something else now. This is one of those cases where genuinely, when I say somebody somewhere out there knows the truth and perhaps that someone is you, that cannot be more true because there are so many people involved here or that may have been involved here that know what happened to her. The fact that she went missing from work and never came back and nobody said a goddamn thing. Not even her boyfriend, I guess. I don't know. It's so weird that nobody reported her missing. That's a giant concern. And nobody realized she didn't come to work the next day. Somebody at that work, somebody who she worked with knows what happened to her. I'm convinced of that. I think her family is convinced of that. Why is there so much hush-hush? Did she find out about the credit card scheme and threatened to expose everyone? Even though they all eventually got found out, would that have really been the motive at that point? Maybe someone figured she did it, even though the FBI confirmed she didn't. And maybe they wanted to silence her because she ruined their lives. Because many people did get in serious trouble for this credit card scheme. I think Robert and Joseph, I'm not 100% positive, but I think they both got caught in the scheme as well, and they both got, in serious trouble for it. So maybe it was a revenge thing. Maybe they wanted to kill Sue because they assumed she was the one to rat them out, even though she wasn't. There's so many possible suspects, and that's a big problem, right? You have not only the two main suspects, but you also have a slew of other people. There were 37 people involved in that credit card thing. 10 people that she worked with directly, including the two men that I've talked about. That means there's 8 more men that she worked with directly that may have had some connection to this. But police need witnesses. They need evidence. They need something in order to link a suspect to this case. And they just don't have that. The person who did this, is got to still be alive, right? This wasn't super long ago. I mean, they're probably in their 50s or 60s at this point. So very much still alive. And they should face the music. They should go to prison for killing Sue Taraskiewicz. They murdered this poor woman brutally. And somebody out there knows who did it. Killers talk. Killers love to brag, especially if more than one person was involved here. If you have any information about the murder of Susan Taraskiewicz, please call the state police at 617-727-8817. Please help Sue's family. As far as I know, her mom, Marlene, is still alive. I think her brother has passed away, and I think her father passed away. unfortunately not knowing ever what happened to her or the answers to what happened to her. But there is still family out there that can see this justice occur. So please help this family get that justice, because Sue Taraskiewicz was just doing her job, and she loved doing her job, but clearly there were people who did not like the fact that she was their boss. They did not like the fact that she may have ratted out their credit card scheme. What stupid reasons to kill the person over. But we've seen it time after time. Please help Sue Taraskiewicz get the justice she rightfully deserves. But that is it for this case. True crime, Aruni, Aduni, and Dingleberry Dongs. Hope you found it interesting. As usual, please like, subscribe, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, or whatever YouTubers are supposed to say. Do it. Just do it, alright? I don't know, it's my Arnold impression. Get out of here! Get down! Subscribe! Subscribe and like! I got a little subscribe and like! Got a little Christopher Walken out of the Arnold Schwarzenegger, even though I can't. Subscribe and like the page. That's not very good Walken impression. I'm doing my best. What is this even? What am I doing? Get out of here! Put that cookie down! What's that from? Who knows what that's from? What about this one? Oh, it's the same movie, but... Hi, little girl. She got through! She got through! Put that cookie down! Put in the comments below if you're actually still here and haven't abandoned this video out of just sheer concern for my well-being. Put in the comments below what you think those quotes are from. It's all from the same movie. Wow, well, okay. So I guess this is toodaloos. This is the video that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friends. Some people started watching it not knowing when it ends, and they'll continue watching it forever just because this is the video that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my